In this video, we're going to look at how to perform long division on polynomial divided by polynomial. So problems like this. But before we look at long division on this, we're going to look at how to do long division with the whole numbers. For example, if we want to divide 675 by 21, we put 675 under the line and put the divisor, the second number 21, on the front. Similarly, we're going to do the same thing when we do long division with the algebraic expressions. So we put the first, which is called dividend, x squared minus 7x minus 23, under the line. So this first one corresponds to the number 675. And the second expression, x minus 3, corresponds to 21 there. They're called a divisor. So this is our divisor here. Just like 21 is the divisor. All right. So because the process of long division on algebraic expressions is very similar, it's pretty much the same steps as dividing whole numbers. But of course, it's going to be, the steps are the same, but the process is more complicated. So the first step, we set it up like this. Next, we're going to look at the numbers. And we need to figure out, because there are two digits here, so 21 goes into here how many times? So of course 21 doesn't go into 6, so we have to pick at least the two digits. We try to figure out 21 goes into 67 how many times. I mean, they're both two digits. It's kind of hard to see to see 21 goes into 67 how many times in your head. So, but there is a quick way so you can do it in your head. What we do is we can round 21 to 20 and round 67 just to 60. And so it's pretty much like doing this. We can do round both digits, both numbers. So it's like doing 20 goes into 60 how many times? And that's 0 really doesn't change anything. So it's kind of like doing 2 goes into 6 how many times? And we're doing division here. 6 divided by 2, of course we get 3. So 2 goes into 6 3 times. So to figure out the quotient, so the answer up here will be called a quotient. Put quotient here. To figure out the quotient, we can do division. 60 divided by 20, which you can simply do 2 divided by 20. And similarly, we can do the same thing here. We are trying to figure out x minus 3 goes into x squared minus 7x how many times? And again, it's not going to be able, it's not as easy as numbers. We are going to only look at, sort of like around this, the idea, we're only going to look at the first term. X corresponds to the first digit 2 here. And the first term, x squared, corresponding to 6 here. So to figure out 2 goes into 6, many of us can, how many times we can figure it out. 2 goes into 6 3 times without doing anything. It's just very simple to see. But if you can't really see that, what you actually have to do is to do 6 divided by 2. That gives us 3. That's how you figure it out if you can't see it. So similarly, with the variables, you may not be able to see very easily like numbers. 2 goes into 6 3 times. And you're going to have to see 2x goes into x squared how many times. Some of you may be able to see it, but if you can't, you can do the same thing, do division. So the first step, we will divide. Step 1, we will divide. Divide what? We just divide the first two terms. Divide the first terms. And so it's like doing x squared divided by x. And we have learned how to do that by using the formula. We keep the base, subtract the exponents. 2 minus 1 would be x to the first. The 1 can be omitted. The exponent of 1 can be omitted. So it's the same idea as doing long division here. So go back to look the process. So we want to figure out 21 goes into 67 how many times? And we're just gonna look at 2 goes into 6 how many times? By doing 6 divided by 2. That gives a 3 right here. And put a 3 on top. That's the quotient. And the same thing, we want to figure out x minus 3 goes into x squared minus 7x how many times? But we're just going to look at the first terms. X goes into x squared how many times? And in order to do that, you do division. X squared divided by x. So that's the first step. Now, go back to the numbers. After we figure out 21 goes into 67 3 times, the second step is going to multiply. We're going to multiply 21 and 3. Although we only use the first digits to figure out the quotient, we still have to, when we do multiplication, we still have to multiply the whole number 21 with the 3. So we're going to do 1 times 3, that's a 3. Let me clear here up a little bit. So we have 21 times 3, that gives us 1 times 3, it's 3. 2 times 3, that's a 6. We line the answer up there. So that second step is multiply the divisor with the quotient. We do 21 times 3, give us a 63. And the same idea here. So when we do the second step, we're going to multiply the number on the front, which is called the divisor, and with the quotient we have so far figured out in this step, and the quotient, how many times that we figured out. So come back here. So when we figured out that x goes into x squared x times, we would put that x on the top. That's our quotient. That this x corresponds to that 3 similarly. And after that, we do multiplication. We're going to multiply x with both of them, just like we multiply 3 with both 2 and 1. And so we do the multiplication step. In here, if you can do it in your head, you can. But if you can't, I'm going to write down x times x minus 3. And this is something we discussed before. We distribute x to both of them. So we get x times x, x squared. X times negative 3, negative 3x. This corresponds to 63. And we're going to put this under the expressions we have. So we're going to put it right here. X squared minus 3x, line up with what we have. So that's the second step, multiplication. Now go back to the numbers. And the third step, we're going to subtract. 7 minus 3 is 4. 6 minus 6 is 0. And so we're going to do the same thing here. In the third step, we will do subtraction. I'm just going to write down subtract. But we do have to be careful when we subtract here because we have our negative numbers in here. When we deal with the whole numbers division, we don't have any negative numbers. We don't have negative 3. We just always have positives. But when we have expressions, we could have negatives. So remember, we're doing subtraction, and I'm going to put a minus sign between each of the terms. So just like when we did a subtraction here, we're doing 7 minus 3 and 6 minus 6. We don't usually have to put the signs there because we're very familiar with the process. But with this expressions, this is something new. It's better to put the minus signs here to remind us so we won't forget. Okay, so we do x squared minus x squared. They cancel. Negative 7, that's different from what we have. We never have negative here. It's always positive 7 minus positive 3. But we possibly could have negative 7 minus negative 3. And so let me write it down here. Negative 7 minus negative 3. It's actually negative 7x minus negative 3x. But when we combine like terms, we only deal with the numbers in front of them. So to do that, it's pretty much keep, change, change. And the rule. So we have the rule for subtraction, keep, change, change. So it's like doing negative 7 plus 3, which give us negative 4, and put the x there. You can write this on the scratch paper, or you can go ahead and work on the original problem. So it's negative 7, keep, change, change. You can mark on the original problem to save you time writing. So we have negative 7 plus negative 3, that positive 3, that gives us negative 4x. And next, So we finished the first round, 3 steps. Divide, multiply, and subtract. So go over the process one more time. So we divide x squared by x to figure out the quotient that x that goes on the top. And then we multiply x with both of them to get x squared minus 3x. And finally, we subtract them. And when we do subtraction, make sure you use keep, change rule. Okay, now we have, go back to the numbers. We have to bring down another digit 5 and to repeat these 3 steps again. So similarly, we got to bring down that negative 23 and to repeat these 3 steps. Again, 21 goes into 45 how many times? You can just look at the first digits. 2 goes into 4 how many times? Apparently that's 2 times. So let's put a 2 up there, because 4 divided by 2 is 2. And similarly, we need to figure out x goes into negative 4x how many times? And you can do division. So it's like doing negative 4x divided by x. So that's our step 1. And canceling x, that gives us negative 4. So that negative 4 will go up as a quotient. That's the first step. The next step will be multiply. So we multiply 2 with both of the digits. We're going to get 42 here. And similarly, we do negative 4 times both of them. If you can do it over here, you can. So negative 4 times x, it's negative 4x. And negative 4 times negative 3, it's positive 12. If you can't, write down the scratch paper. So we're doing negative 4 times x minus 3. That gives us negative 4x, distribute, and negative 4 times negative 3, that's a positive 12. So the same as what we just got. The final step is subtraction. So we do 5 minus 2, 3, 4 minus 4, 0. And we can omit that 0. Similarly, we're going to do subtraction here. Let me put a minus sign here to remind ourselves we're doing subtraction. So we're doing negative 4x minus negative 4x. They cancel because anything subtracted itself will be 0. Or even if you do keep, change. So keep, change, you're going to get negative 4 plus 4, which is still 0. So they cancel. In fact, we should get a 0x, but 0 times x is still 0. That's why we just omit writing the whole thing. Just like when we have 0, we didn't put that 0 here. And then we're going to do negative 3 minus positive 12. And use the rule keep, change to minus. It's not very easy to see here, so I'm going to rewrite here the subtraction. So we're doing negative 3 minus positive 12. So that means we got to do keep the first number negative 12, change to the minus. So it's like negative 23 plus negative 12, and that gives us negative 35. Because $23 debt plus $12 debt, that's negative $35 debt. So when we put the answer, you can mark this is our quotient and this is our remainder. That's one way to write your answer. There's another way to put the answer is write it as 32 plus 3 divided by 21. Because we stopped here, we didn't continue to finish what 3 divided by 21 is because we didn't want decimals. So the quotient is 32. The remainder is 3, goes on the top. Divisor is still the same as 21. So similarly, we can write on our answer the same way. The quotient is x minus 4, copying from here, and plus the remainder is negative 35 on the top, and the divisor copied x minus 3 on the bottom. So as you can see, compare the process, they are exactly the same steps. But to figure out some like expression, x minus 3 goes into x squared minus 7x how many times? And we just have to do division. We can't see it easily. If you can see it, and just like x times x gives you x squared, you don't have to do division. But if you have trouble, just do division.